Hey everybody, Rich here at Leaving MAGA at leavingmaga.org. As always, we thank you for all of your support, and we really appreciate all the engagement that you've shown us with our leader conversations where we speak with others who, like myself, were deep in MAGA and left. We are joined today by, her nickname is the Congenial Okie, Bailee Tyler from the great state of Oklahoma. Bailee, it is good to see you again. I really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So let's get right into this here and talk about, if you'll take us through what some of the attraction was for you to MAGA and why you originally found yourself being enticed by joining the MAGA community.
So in 2016, when Donald Trump was running for the presidency, it was really, for me, the thing that enticed me was not only the community support or community, like everybody in my community was MAGA, right? And so all I was hearing was about how he's going to fix the economy. And it's been so long at this point, like that's really the only thing I can remember, other than, because I was a very deeply conservative Christian. I was anti-abortion, and Donald Trump has changed his stance 20 times, but at that time, he was anti-abortion. So I was all for that, right? But other than that, he was just going to make America great again. And to a simple-minded person, and I was very simple-minded, you don't have to think much deeper than that. Like just surface level, making America great was enticing, especially when you hold racist beliefs, and someone who is racist isn't going to admit that they're racist. So I'm trying to get ahead of the thoughts and questions people are going to have in the audience, because I've been asked these questions a lot of times. So I'm trying to make sure I'm explaining myself clearly and covering the bases, but without going on a tangent. But what enticed me was very surface level. And there wasn't much thought to it. It was just, hey, we're going to make America great. And then you're sold, right? So.
Were you a particularly political person in 2015? Because I'm curious about that also in terms of how apolitical you may have been.
No, a comment I get asked a lot is, how did you not know, everyone knows who Donald Trump is. And 19-year-old, 20-year-old me, I had never even heard of The Apprentice. Mind you, I'm from small town Kansas, middle of nowhere. Growing up, my parents rarely watched the news. We weren't a big TV family. We didn't really watch things. If the TV was on, my dad was watching those garage shows. That's what he watched. So I wasn't politically involved. I think the most I was ever politically involved was in middle school when Obama and Mitt Romney were running, and we had a mock election. And yes, in middle school, I chose Mitt Romney. I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because looking back on it, nobody in my public education, nobody taught me political, what's the word I'm looking for? I just wasn't, I wasn't politically informed. Nobody really taught me anything besides propaganda. I just remember, in school, my teacher, so this would, Obama would have been president. So my junior, senior year, he was a Republican. So of course there was bias in how he taught us civics and history. So I was just kind of put there, my father was very verbally abusive, and he metaphorically beat the empathy out of me. My church did not teach me empathy. And a lot of people say, well, what kind of church doesn't teach empathy? mine was like hellfire and doom. It was a non-denominational church, so no empathy there. And then, growing up, him being abusive, even just verbally, he's a very controlling person. My mother didn't step in to like teach me politics. That was the least of her concerns. So empathy, political knowledge, none of that was given to me. So circa 2016, that time comes around and I'm influenced by my community and it all seems normal to me. It's just another day, right? And Democrats are bad. Mind you, I knew nothing about the Democrats, knew none of their policies. I just knew that I was anti-abortion and wanted to make America great again.
It shows the gravitational pull of conformity when others are around us and essentially everyone is thinking the same. And it's so easy to succumb to the identical way of thinking that everybody around you and is thinking in the beliefs that they're espousing. For me, I grew up in a quintessential middle-class family. My parents worked a variety of public and private sector jobs, and they were so politically indifferent that, to my knowledge, I don't think my parents ever even voted.
Yeah. According to my mom, my dad's never been a registered voter. I don't know if he's a registered voter, but he is very much MAGA. He loves Donald Trump. And me and him had a little scuffle, kind of a verbal scuffle last summer, because that's usually the only time I see him. I go visit at the lake. And last summer when we bombed Iran, he was like ecstatic. Like he was so happy and excited. And he said, he showed me a video and it was an AI video, like newsreel. It was weird, talking about bombing Iran. And I said, why are you happy about that? And he's like, well, they're going to learn to respect us. And I said, Dad, we have been bombing the Middle East for decades and they still don't like us. So I don't think another bomb is going to make things better. And he didn't have a rebuttal. Like he just was, how they get, like MAGA always just like when they can't argue back, they get angry. And so he cut off the conversation. And it's just, I'm kind of going on a tangent here, but like the way that MAGA thinks that doing these horrible, awful things is okay, but then like still calling themselves Christian, like I want to talk about that. Like that is something that I have a hard time reckoning with, because I was a conservative Christian and now I'm an atheist. And I'm just like, how can you call yourself a Christian when this is what you support?
Did you go through, as part of leaving, and we'll get to the reasons for leaving MAGA for you in a moment, but talk about maybe the religious deconstruction also that you went through?
Yeah, I have always had questions. But the fear of hell is what kept me a Christian for over 2 decades. I remember the pieces starting to come undone and unraveled when I was getting married in 2020, which is when I left MAGA, was like around May of 2020. But like the religious deconstruction really took off for me because I asked my uncle, who is an elder in the church, or was at the time, will my husband, who's an atheist, will he go to heaven with me? And because I'm in like the depths of MAGA at this point in 2020. And he had told me like, no, like your husband's going to burn in hell. Like I hated the answer that I got. Like it didn't seem right. And even if it was the right answer, like what kind of God does that? Like it just didn't resonate with me anymore. And so, 2020, I was halfway through my bachelor's degree for industrial engineering, and I was really into researching and critical thinking and verifying sources, all the stuff you have to do for college in general, but especially a science degree. And I was just questioning everything. So questioning my religion, questioning my politics, questioning the people I was listening to, and people in my own circle. Like, I just had questions and nobody could give me good answers. A lot of times I found myself getting into political arguments and then going through the thought process and then getting mad and like circling back around and like having a different answer because like my thought process was changing. And so I just remember being very angry at one point because everything I had ever known and thought wasn't making sense anymore.
I think that there is definitely a certain appeal to the black and white part of MAGA where there are these very simple answers for these very complex problems. And I feel like as someone who was a political independent in 2016, but was generally pretty ignorant and not well read, I think looking back on it, I was ready-made for MAGA. There wasn't much of a religious aspect about MAGA for me. So there wasn't a religious deconstruction I went through, but there were times that I was around evangelicals, and it's why I believe that there had been they who were trying to persecute Christians and erode Christianity out of our culture and out of our country. So I was around others who believed that, even though I wasn't the most religious Catholic. So take us through a little bit about life in MAGA for you, and then some of the reasons that led you to eventually leave.
Yeah. So when I was getting deep into MAGA, it would have been 2018, 2019. It's all really blurry at this point for multiple reasons. I'm just so far detached from the thought process and thinking that I had back then. But I also have PTSD and stuff from various events in my life. So remembering the best that I can, that time of my life, I was listening to podcasts. So like Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh, Megyn Kelly, trying to remember all the names, like all the right-wing grifters as we know them. And people are going to argue with me over this one, but I was listening to Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan was a huge reason as to why I voted for Donald Trump, and ultimately got into conspiracy theories, which I feel like break down your frontal lobe even further. Like if you can buy into conspiracy theories, it like just deteriorates your brain and your critical thinking capability. It's a disease in my opinion. But I was just listening to these people, and Ben Shapiro really started off what I would consider him now a moderate, but like at the time, to me, he was very moderate. And then he just kind of went off the deep end in his support for Trump, really went to bat for him. And I thought Ben Shapiro was really smart. I'm sorry. Like, I just thought he had really good points. And I'm only laughing because it's crazy. Like, when you think back to the nonsense, like, I don't remember a lot of Ben Shapiro's talking points, but they made sense to me. And I was working in factories, long hours, sometimes at night. And, when you're just trying to get through your shift and you have your earbuds in and you're listening to these people for a 10-hour shift, that's all you're consuming. So for me, it wasn't Fox News necessarily. I did like late 2019 start watching like Fox and Friends, kind of got into a little bit of Newsmax, but it was mostly podcasts. And I found myself agreeing with these people. And then I would get in arguments with the people I loved that weren't MAGA, I was a really angry person because I had hateful beliefs. I think I was mostly angry because I couldn't argue my point very good, probably.
Well, I was somebody who was addicted to fear and rage when I was in MAGA. And the media that I consumed, the Tucker Carlsons, the Breitbarts, this type of media. There was media that I wrote for. I had bylines in places like Fox and The Federalist. I wrote for a site called WorldNet Daily, which popularized the Obama birther conspiracy theory. And I was producing one freelance story after another for which I was never paid, nor did I ever ask any money for it. And the turning point for me, one of them was in the summer of 2021, I started to diversify my news and information sources.
Yes.
So talk about that a little bit and how that eventually led you on the pathway to leaving.
Yeah. So back to, it would have been late 2019, early 2020. And again, questioning my religion, questioning my politics. I remember being on my lunch break and watching Fox and Friends, I guess. It was Kayleigh McEnany, and she was talking about like the names for children's private parts. And she said that children should not know the anatomical names for their privates. And when she said that, like alarm bells started going off, and I was like, whoa, like that's weird. That is weird. That's not okay. And I actually stopped watching like completely. Like that was enough. I was like, I'm not listening to anybody that says some predator stuff like that. Like, no, thank you. And so I don't think I purposely sought out different media. 2020 with COVID, TikTok got popular, and I never got onto the red pill side of TikTok. Like I immediately got into left-wing spaces. So I was hearing things for the first time and agreeing with them, like hearing these different perspectives. And I just launched from there. So, I don't know the exact day that I left MAGA. I do know that around the time that George Floyd was killed and all the BLM stuff was happening, in the height of COVID-19, I had realized like, hey, I'm done with this, because I was listening to Donald Trump talk for the first time. I know that's going to sound crazy to the people watching, but that was the first time that I had like actually listened to this man. Like I didn't go to rallies. I didn't watch the news really, but I was watching him every day on press briefings. And I was like, this guy's a moron. Like this is not okay. Like this, I can't believe I ever supported this guy. And so TikTok, hearing information that I hadn't heard before, also introduced me, because the AP, Associated Press, is on TikTok. I started getting a lot of information from them. And ultimately, I stopped watching the daily press briefings for COVID-19 and really just dove into democratic socialism. So I thought I was a libertarian for a little while. And I was, even while I was a libertarian, I labeled myself that. I was still consuming like leftist voices because I was so intrigued by it. Like it was a whole new world to me, and it made sense. And mind you, I was in college. I was diversifying my circle, experiencing a diverse group of people, and I really started to gain back the empathy that I, like I said, had been beat out of me. And like I said, I catapulted from being a libertarian to a democratic socialist and have been since. So,
well, I say when we leave MAGA, we reclaim our individuality, our agency, and our empathy. And we become what I call a born again human being. And for me, leaving MAGA was good for my soul, my psyche, and my mental health. It was a way for when I left. It was terrifying for me at first because I knew I was going to be walking away from a second family. And I also had to acknowledge that I had allowed myself to be lied to, and I had believed those lies and had crafted an entire persona, identity, and worldview based on lies, falsehoods, and conspiracy theories. So it's what made it so scary, but it got to a point where there was one lie, one betrayal too many. And in the summer of 2022, I could not look the other way anymore. I had reached my red line, and when I reached this line of demarcation, I didn't cross it. I said, you know what? I can't stay in this movement anymore. It does not comport with my values. And, it seems like that is a similar experience for you that you came to, where you reach a point where you cannot support the president anymore. You cannot be an advocate anymore for MAGA policies. And that was how it was for me. And I'm coming up to what I call my leaving MAGAversary, because I left on August 30th, 2022. So it's going to be 4 years for me in August. And I look back on it. And the fact is, Bailee, there's not a singular second that I've ever thought that I made the wrong decision. No regrets for me.
Yeah, I'm very similar to you. As you reached that line and you were just like, I can't do it anymore. But for me, the time between me leaving, like when I knew I had left and I was done with it, to the time that I became I realized I was a democratic socialist, I had deconstructed alone. Leaving MAGA is the first step of the deconstruction. Now, maybe some deconstruction was happening before that led us to leave, but there's a lot of deprogramming that has to happen. And unfortunately, I voted for Donald Trump in 2020. Now, I don't make excuses for that, but people ask me why. And my thought process at that time, although I had left MAGA, I hated Donald Trump. I did not want to vote for him, but Democrats were still bad because I was a libertarian at the time. And this is still a thing today. A lot of libertarians don't like people on the left. I don't want to speak for all libertarians, but that is, in my experience, something that I've heard. And so especially at that time, Democrats bad, but I knew I had to vote. And so how I justified it at that time was I was voting for the lesser of two evils. That's lackable. What was evil about Joe Biden? Nothing. Literally nothing. As far as if you're comparing, to Donald Trump. We can go into leftist politics, but I don't want to dive into that. I don't want to criticize Joe Biden as part of this story. But if I'm going to vote and pick out of the two options I had, I really, pardon my French, but fucked up. And I chose Donald Trump, and I had regret over that, even though Donald Trump didn't get elected. I think that the fact that he even had the opportunity to run again, that he wasn't ran out of town after the first time, like I feel guilty, like I was a part of that, like I left MAGA. Why did why, Bailee, did you do that? And so something I wanted to get into when you asked me to do this interview is the phenomenon that's happening now on social media, specifically TikTok. You guys started the Leaving MAGA trend. And I've shared my story with the Leaving MAGA hashtag. But in the year 2026, there's a lot of prominent MAGA folk who have left, have publicly stated that they're no longer MAGA. And a lot of people who have, never voted for Donald Trump, always been leftists of some sort, are expecting these people to change overnight. And the reason why, you and I are even having this discussion is to showcase that true deconstruction, doesn't happen overnight. This has been years-long journey for us. Now, with the help of the internet, I have seen specific creators. I'm going to call her out. She's a mutual of mine, Carter. She has rocket speed deconstructed. She has openly taken feedback and learned and done her due diligence to deconstruct not only her religion, but her politics. But I don't want people to think that is the standard when it comes to leaving MAGA. Leaving MAGA, to me, is the first step in deconstruction. It's saying, I'm done. I realized that I was duped. I realized that I was wrong, because you have to go through that accountability and accept some things that are going to be really hard truths. And then you can work on deconstruction. And it doesn't always have to be religious deconstruction, although I think that plays a big part for a lot of people. But just even taking it day by day and reading books, listening to voices that you don't normally listen to, that's what I do with my platform, is try to have genuine conversation with people about deconstruction, and that it looks different for everybody.
No, it is a process. For me, it took me an entire year to make the decision to leave. And I think that, so there's really two steps that I always say about what it takes to leave MAGA and what that actually means. The first is that it is not enough to just distance oneself from the president. Someone has to, in order to leave, renounce the lies, falsehoods, and conspiracy theories of MAGA politics. Yeah. And the second part is to build up rather than tear down democracy. And the way that we define that is by making the continued case that we as a people agree more than we disagree. Mm-hmm. And I feel like both of those have to happen, and they need to consistently occur in order for one to leave MAGA and stay out of MAGA. Because we don't, as an organization, we don't require anyone to have to apologize, but we do encourage it, though, because there's something really cathartic about making a public apology, and people see that there's a genuine attempt to make amends.
Yeah.
Because something, Bailee, that you and I and all of our leaders in Leaving MAGA, what we embody and what we confirm is that it is possible for someone to change their mind. Sure. And, and as we wrap up here, something I want to ask you to conclude is, why do you feel the need to speak up? Why is that important for you to keep making the videos that you do, keeping the public advocate that you are for Leaving MAGA?
Ooh, I'm gonna get emotional on this one. Because I understand the magnitude, the effect, the harm that my vote caused. And the very least thing that I can do is speak out and try to reach others. Now, I have done other activism and advocacy since I have left MAGA. I was a public education advocate until I got my cancer diagnosis, and then I stepped away. I led a statewide group here in Oklahoma advocating for public education, advocated against Ryan Walters, if you know who that guy is.
Yes, superintendent of schools.
Yeah, he's. But I again, kind of like you said, I do it to show people that it's possible and that it is happening. Like I had been on TikTok for a little while before I started sharing my story, but I was talking politics mostly, and then I realized like I was good at it. I was good at sharing stories and telling my truth. And so I just decided one day to be very vulnerable, because it is a vulnerable thing. People are really mean, and rightfully so. Like, I deserve all the mean comments I get. And I just think that people, whether MAGA or not, need to hear it. Because A, it gives hope. B, it creates a space for those who are on the fence. It's not a lot, but I've had several people come to me and tell me that I helped them leave MAGA. And I didn't even talk to them directly. They just watched my videos. So, we
need to meet those people. You need to introduce them to us.
Well, one was actually somebody I know from high school, and I didn't even know they were MAGA. Like, we didn't go to the same school, but she actually commented on my video the other day and said, you helped me leave MAGA. Thank you for your videos. And I was like, and I don't do any of it for clout. Like, most of my videos don't go anywhere, but I'm still reaching people, and you know what? That's the least I can do. So.
Well, you are making an incredibly positive impact. I want to thank you for everything that you've done, for being a proponent for leaving MAGA. It does not go unnoticed. You are an invaluable member of our community. You've shown great intrepidity and courage in speaking out the way that you do. So as we close here, tell us where everyone can find you and follow you.
I am on TikTok as at Congenial Okie. I do have 2 profiles. One is like 2.0. I don't use that one very much. That's my backup. But at Congenial Okie, my name is Congenial Okie on there with the blue heart. I'm not on Instagram or anything like that. So just come find me on TikTok.
Okay, well, I'm sure people are going to come to you, and as those who are having their doubts, what I want to say on behalf of Bailee and myself is that if you're seeing this and you're in MAGA and you're having doubts, we want you to know that you are not alone, that we have been where you are, and that we as a Leaving MAGA community can provide you the support needed in order to go through the odyssey of making that decision to finally walk away and leave MAGA. Bailee, it was really great to see you. You're always so articulate in the way that you express your upbringing and why you left and why you're doing what you're doing. I just want to again give my thanks to you on behalf of everyone at Leaving MAGA. We were with Bailee Tyler from the state of Oklahoma. Bailee, thank you again. It was good to see you. Hey everybody, if you like this video, make sure you drop a comment, make sure you subscribe, and also be sure to visit us at leavingmaga.org. You can read more of our testimonials, you can contact us, you can subscribe to our newsletter, you can get information on our support groups that we hold every week for friends and relatives of those in MAGA, and you can get information on my memoir, One Betrayal Too Many, Why I Left MAGA. And any questions that you have, you can feel free to bring them to our weekly live stream, which is at Wednesday, 1 o'clock Eastern across all of our socials. As always, we appreciate you watching. Thanks for your support.